Right, so for all of the things any of our politicians here in the UK, in fact, any politicians in the West, it seems, are saying in regards to the ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas, with innocent civilians being caught up in it on both sides, the one thing all of them are failing to call for is a ceasefire. Stopping the bloodshed immediately so that a way forward can be found. Warfare never solves anything at the end of the day, does it? All wars end when people finally get around a table and talk. And for as much as the atrocities by Hamas can and should be condemned, if Gaza wasn't basically an open-air concentration camp, things likely would never have escalated to this. Palestine must be free, after all. Right now, though, the Labour Party seems to be competing for who can possibly be the worst at framing this debate. They aren't calling for a ceasefire because apparently stopping the killing might kill off their chances of a general election win. Right, so this story regarding Labour and its apparent priorities, i.e. that winning the next general election is more important than calling for a ceasefire, has come from a Sky News interview with the eternally odious Kay Burley, she who recently misrepresented the Palestinian ambassador's words that some other Sky News anchor had to deliver an apology over for, and her interview this morning with Labour MP Darren Jones, he who was regularly seen at his best holding dodgy business types to account as chair of the Business and Trade Select Committee, but who took a cabinet post from Starmer last month, ending all of that, now becoming Shadow Chief Secretary to the Treasury, and has sadly become another obedient Starmeroid drone as a result. Well, the topic of ceasefires came up when Bernie mentioned that Save the Children, the charity, were demanding a ceasefire. She asked him, should there be a ceasefire or not? Straightforward question, no beating about the bush there, was there? Trouble is, Jones had to give a political fudge of an answer for some reason. He said, well, to answer your question about Save the Children, I entirely empathise with their position, and I watched the news last night. Children being affected by this, and it's clearly deeply sad, and you don't want any child to be in that situation, and I understand, therefore, why they are calling for that. All I'm saying is that on issues of ceasefire or other issues, there are proper diplomatic routes that need to be followed for those types of discussions to happen. It's not for MPs such as myself in TV interviews. Bernie cut him off at that point. She does like to interrupt, doesn't she? But fair play this time, her timing was fairly good. He really wasn't saying much, was he? Nobody wants to see kids hurt, do they? Well, of course we don't. Well, demand a ceasefire then, if that's the case. Proper diplomatic routes. Yeah, they happen when you put the guns and the rocket launchers down. Let's skip to that bit before more people, more kids, as Save the Children are quite obviously focused on, die. Bernie stopped Jones and pushed him by saying that you're representing Labour today, moving the conversation back onto his party, and this is reasonable redirection. Bernie could see he was going to play the we're in the opposition card, and Jones appeared to be ready for this. But his answer to Bernie's interruption was no less bonkers, and more so if he had seen it coming, because he, on the question of being Labour's representative on the show, Jones came back with, the Labour Party is a party preparing for government. We hope we might be in government next year. So what I say today, it could have implications for what a Labour government will have to do. So that's why I'm being very limited in what I'm saying to you today, because if we are to come into government next year, it will be for David Lammy, our Foreign Secretary, for our diplomatic service to have conversations in a proper and professional way. And politicians can say things very easily or share things on social media or in new studios that can have implications for that type of process. All I'm saying is I'm going to be handling this in a professional way. So, basically what you, Darren Jones, are saying is that because you might be in power next year, you can't call for a ceasefire now because it might have implications for you later. You seem to not be prepared to comment on what those implications might be. So I'll tell you what they are because I can guarantee them. And the answer is more people dead because politicians like you won't act now. This is one of those times where it literally does not matter who's in charge. The answer is the same, or should be the same, and that should be the promotion of a ceasefire, of ending the violence, of getting around the table to talk this out, because this situation has festered on and on for decades, for 75 years, Darren. And if you can't work out what the outcome by next year will be based on 75 years of history, then get out of politics. You aren't up to it. What is the hold-up? Is Starmer sticking his moistened finger in the air and still trying to work out which way the wind is blowing before making a decision on this? Is his devotion to Israel more in the context of this ceasefire conversation of ensuring the flow of arms from here to there continues? What kind of a party is Labour if it puts the potential of achieving power in this country a year down the line, maybe, ahead of stopping a humanitarian crisis which begins with a ceasefire here and now? What is wrong with them? How far the party has fallen under Starmer, where naked self-aggrandizement and ambition supersedes any semblance of basic humanity. How out of step is the party leadership against the feelings of pretty much it's got to be the vast majority of this country. Surely we're all better than this. Surely we all think we're better than this, that we demand a ceasefire, and that a ceasefire is not an unreasonable thing to ask. Did they not see all the protests going on in the streets in cities up and down this country the other day? I'm sure all of those people think the ceasefire is better than, I wonder if Labour will get into power next year. We better wait till then. What am I thinking? They banned attendance of such things, Labour did, didn't they? Unless they were for Israel, of course. To their elected officials anyway. But speaking of elected officials within the Labour Party, they aren't happy about this lack of a ceasefire call. And amongst others, a letter to Keir Starmer and Angela Rayner demanding a ceasefire from some 150 Labour councillors nationwide, numbers still growing, all after 23 Labour councillors at time of writing around the country have already resigned. So that's a lot of potential resignees in waiting if the party doesn't shift on its ceasefire stance, isn't it? And the signs are, it won't be. I won't read out the whole letter, but the last paragraph is the most stinging of all, and it reads, "As Labour councillors elected to serve our constituents, the message we have been hearing repeatedly over the last 2 weeks is simple. People just want an end to the bloodshed and the loss of innocent life. No nation, people or community should have to endure collective punishment, and the same should be the case for the Palestinian people. We are also clear that hostages held captive must be returned to their families safely. Therefore, as Labour councillors, as members of the Muslim community, we urge the Labour Party to urgently adopt a position of calling for an immediate ceasefire, calling on the UK government and the international community to act upon this proposal to save innocent lives." So there's the conflict within the Labour Party. Some elected officials want to do the right thing. Unfortunately, the Red Tories actually in control of the whole show, in power at the very top, value power more. But that means more to them than saving lives does. The consistent lack of calls for a ceasefire shows there's no rules-based international order anymore. Anti-Semitism right now means supporting Palestinians, it seems. Starmer is lying himself into a political grave. Labour is still even now maintaining 100% support for Israel, and the media are providing cover for the lot of it. More resignations will come, I'm sure of it. At time of writing, there are reports of shadow cabinet resignations potentially on the way over this. Trouble is, this is a leadership that isn't listening to anyone but itself, and it doesn't seem to care either. Whether that changes as the situation continues to worsen remains to be seen. But in their minds, they have an election to win. They still believe you'll vote for them anyway, so they have no reason to change right now, no reason to care. Are you going to prove them right? Thanks for watching. I hope you found the video useful. Please like, share and subscribe if you did. More content out daily. Please do have your say on this in the comments below and be part of the conversation too. Meanwhile, here's a video recommendation where Israeli targets have included not just the well-known targeting of a church, which various media outlets are still trying to paint as having been Hamas, but also churches and mosques flattening northern Gaza in order to claim it for real estate later. Wouldn't be the first time they've done it, would it? Also a war crime though, incidentally. Another reason to call for that ceasefire. And I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.